Another scorecard. There's only 3 big ones. There's lots of little ones, but there's 3 big ones. The second scorecard, I'm going to draw to look like this. And the reason I'm drawing it to look like this is because this number right here is what everybody tends to look at when they get their scorecards. This particular scorecard is called an income statement or a statement of operations or a P&L, profit and loss. So that's one of the things accountants do. I mean, they give everything 14 different names to keep you guessing, right? What are you talking about? You're talking about P&L, all right? I don't know what that is, but I do have an income statement, right? So this is an income statement, a P&L, a statement of operations. All of it means the same thing, and it's really divided into 2 parts. The top part is you got revenue or sales or turnover. Turnover is what they call it in some countries. Sales or revenue or turnover. And then you deduct out all the expenses, and what you're left over with is the profit, or the earnings is another way to say it, or the net income, right? The net income of the business. Now, anybody here ever gotten financial statements on your business? Yeah, most people have. Some people don't. Some people don't get financial statements. Instead, what they do is once a year, whether they need to or not, right? They look at their tax return. Now, you talk about a bad idea. Number one, looking at the numbers only once a year, that's a bad idea. And number 2, looking at a tax return to figure out what's going on in your business is a really bad idea. Because it doesn't tell you the information you need to know. And yep, that's what a lot of people do, which helps explain why most businesses don't beat the odds. I mean, holy cow, if we're going to go to all this trouble, we're going to have all this work, why don't we get the skills to fly the plane and not die, not crash? All right. Revenue minus expenses equals profit or earnings. Now, what you do, if you're typical, and most people are, what you do is if you get financial statements, which only 50% of business owners get them, 50%, and of the 50% that get them, only 3% know how to read them. Those numbers are starting to sound suspiciously like the success ratio, isn't it? No wonder people are having so many problems. What you do when you get financial statements, if you get them, is this is the first number you look at right there. You look at the bottom line. That's what it's called, the bottom line. And if this number right here is a particularly good number, you'll go have a drink. Am I right? Yeah, and if this number's a bad number, you'll go have a drink. Am I right? Yeah, so everybody's looking right here, and they're looking at this number. If it's good, they drink, and if it's bad, they drink. Which is another reason why most businesses don't succeed. Most business owners are alcoholics, right? They're looking right here.
Well, psychology is an interesting thing. A lot of people think that whether they can make money or not has a lot to do with, how they were brought up or what family they were born into or what they do for a living, when really wealth psychology has a lot more to do with what's going on inside their head.
Okay, so go ahead and start briefing me. So is this things like thoughts about what our parents told us or, programming?
Sure. What your parents taught you, what you've gleaned from the government, what you watched on TV. Here's an example. The vast majority of the population is not wealthy, right? The vast majority of the population is less than super wealthy. And so when Hollywood, for example, makes a movie, they make that movie for the for the larger segment of the population. They don't make the movie for the wealthy. So what they do is in those movies, they use values that will appeal to people who don't really have a lot of money. And so, for example, you'll see in the movies it's always the bad guy that has a lot of money. As a matter of fact, all the superheroes are broke. Superheroes don't have a lot of money. The one superhero that has a lot of money is Batman. He's not entirely a good guy. So the way they condition us is that you never take the reward and that, that money is evil and all this sort of stuff. So people have a lot of issues around money that many times they're not even aware of. And so at any level of wealth, there are different things that might block people in terms of attracting more wealth into their lives.
So how do they go about unblocking those things?
Well, a big part of it is to understand what the blockages are that they have. And when they understand that, for example, someone might have a lot of guilt attached to money. When you see the generation of people who grew up following the Depression and the generation of people who will grow up following what we're going through right now, the things they learn from their parents about scarcity and about, oh, don't spend and so on, the things they learn in that area might teach them to associate guilt with money. And so when they begin to understand that, they can overcome it, and they can begin to realize that if they have a great deal of money, it's not necessarily, well, it definitely doesn't have to be a bad thing. In fact, that with more money, they simply are more of what they already are. So if they're already loving and generous, then them having more money just creates more love and generosity. But, you know, I guess it's a matter of identifying where those beliefs come from for them, and then learning to overcome them and learning to realize the opposite of it.
But don't you think that's probably one of the most challenging parts? It's kind of like if you know that there's a blockade in the road, you know exactly what that blockade is, and you're going to get out and you're going to move that obstacle. But when you don't know, and you're driving and you keep hitting something and you're not sure what it is, it's hard to figure out how do you remove that. So how does one really identify that they have blocks? I mean, obviously, if they're not having financial wealth in their life, that's pretty obvious. But how do they identify the actual blocks to start making that process of removing them?
Well, there's a number of ways. The one is that you go out and find a financial coach or somebody who is an expert in that area. But we have been coaching people on that kind of stuff for a long time. And one day, my girlfriend said to me, you really can't be doing this one-on-one for people, or even for 100 or 500 people in an audience at a time. And so she suggested that I combine my previous experience, because before I got involved in speaking and writing and stuff, I was a business person. I started an IT company and sold it and retired and what have you. And she said, why don't you take that knowledge and combine it with this technology, this idea?